Hi guys, welcome back to East Meets West XOXO. So I got requested to do a foundation video, and so I'm just going to do a quick talk about foundation, and then I'm going to show you my entire foundation and face routine afterwards. So if you want to skip the talk, you can skip to the actual foundation routine. Um, so basically there are a few things to know about foundation in order to put it on the most natural looking way. First, you obviously have to find a foundation that's really good for your skin type. If you're oily, then you want obviously a more matte foundation, or if you have really dry skin, maybe a more moisturizing one. You have to decide if you want light, medium, or full coverage, and then for each one, there's sort of different ways that you can apply it. So foundation is kind of a trial and error type process. You have to try lots of foundations to see which ones that you like, which ones match your skin tone and your skin type the best, so that they last on your skin the longest. The other thing is primer. If you have really oily skin, then you might want to put a primer on your skin before you put on your foundation to help it last longer. I have dry skin, so I don't really do that. But one of the most important steps to do before you put on your foundation for any skin type is to moisturize, and that will just help the foundation go on smoother and blend in with your skin better. So basically the first thing that you want to do before you put on your foundation is put on your moisturizer, and if you want sunscreen, then put on your sunscreen, which you should wear sunscreen, but I always forget it. So put on your sunscreen, your moisturizer, let it sink into your skin, and once it's sunk into your skin, then you can apply your foundation. And there are several different ways that you can apply your foundation, and they're all going to give you different coverages and different finishes. And so basically, obviously, the first thing that you can do is you can use your hands, which a lot of people do. I don't really recommend using your hands because you can transfer a lot of oils to your face and a lot of germs, and if you get breakouts, then using your hands really isn't a good idea. But with some foundations, it will help it look a little bit more natural if you do use your hands, and it can give you a good finish. Typically, your hands are going to give you a lighter coverage, so if you like a heavier coverage, then I wouldn't suggest using your hands. The next thing that you can use is a stippling brush like this from Real Techniques, and the stippling brush is also going to give you a little bit of a lighter coverage, but it's really great at making your skin look flawless. So if you want to get more of like an airbrush type finish, then you can put some product on, dot it onto your face, and then use small circles to really blend it in, and you'll get an amazingly natural finish with this. And I love this brush, but again, it's a lighter coverage than a regular foundation brush. The next kind of brush you can use is a buffing brush. This is also from Real Techniques, and this is good for mineral foundations, and it's really good to just buff the foundation into the skin, and it will also give you a really nice natural finish, but it'll be a little bit heavier than the stippling brush. Finally, the last brush you can use is an actual foundation brush, and it looks like this. You can get them in all different sizes and shapes. This one's good for getting into all of like the little corners of your face because it's pointed. And this is also from Real Techniques. And this is going to lay it on the heaviest. Things to remember when you're putting foundation on with a brush: it can get streaky. So you can minimize that by putting your moisturizer on with the same brush so that the product doesn't actually sink into the brush as much, and it won't streak when you put it on your face. But also, if you mix your foundation and your moisturizer, you'll get a lighter coverage. When applying your foundation, you always want to work from the center of the face outwards so that you get the most coverage in the places that you need it the most, which is usually the T-zone and this area where people tend to get oily and tend to break out a lot. Alternatives to foundation include a tinted moisturizer, which is just what it sounds like, a moisturizer with a little bit of color in it, and that's really great for summer, but it is going to be a lighter coverage. But what you can do is put it on and then just use concealer to conceal the spots that you have. I'm a big fan of not using really, really heavy or cakey foundations. You want one that's just going to look natural, and if it doesn't cover all your blemishes, then you can just use the concealer to cover it, because when you have natural skin showing, that's the most attractive, I think. But to each their own. In terms of powdering, you can get translucent powders, or you can get actual colored powders or that will give you more coverage, and you can even use powdered foundations if you want a lot more coverage. I don't usually powder because I sort of like the natural sort of kind of dewy look. If you have very oily skin, then you will want to powder at least through the center of the face if I'm going to have a picture taken, or if I'm going somewhere where I want my foundation to last a long time, then I will powder through the forehead and the nose at least, and a little bit through this area. Translucent powder is a colorless powder basically that is just going to set your makeup, or you can also use a setting spray, and all of that will help your foundation to last a little bit longer. So for long-lasting foundation, you would want to use a primer if you have oily skin. Make sure you get a foundation that really suits your skin, and powder in the places that you need to powder in. One last thing is that if you are going to have your picture taken, you want to avoid foundations with any sort of SPF because it will flash back and you will look very white in photos. So I think that's all that I have to say, and thanks for watching, and I'm going to follow this up with my actual foundation routine. So if you want to see that, then keep watching. Thanks. Okay, so now I'm going to do my usual foundation routine, and the foundation that I'm using at the moment is the Clinique Super Balanced Makeup. And so what I'm going to do is just going to shake it up a little bit and get some of it in the cap. And so the brush that I'm using mostly is the Pointed Foundation brush from Real Techniques. And this is basically when I have a lot of time. If I don't really have a lot of time, then I typically will just use my fingers, which is not the best coverage and not the longest lasting, but it's obviously a lot quicker. But for, you know, oil cleanliness reasons, I like to use brushes instead of my fingers most of the time. So basically I just lay it on the skin from the center of the face outwards so that you get most of the coverage where you really need it. And I always go over the eyelids as well to even out the skin tone and also to set a base for any eye makeup that you put on later on. And so I'm just putting this on right now, and then I'm going to go ahead and blend it in. And you always want to blend it down your jaw and onto your neck as well, so you don't have any lines of foundation. If you're changing the color of your face as well, then you're going to want to definitely go down onto your neck a little bit farther, onto your ears as well. Okay, so once I put all that on, then I take the stippling brush from Real Techniques as well, and I just blend that in small circular motions all over the face. And not really pressing too hard, just lightly blending. Okay, so I typically have two concealers that I like to use, the Sonia Kashuk Hidden Concealer Palette, Hidden Agenda Concealer Palette. And it has a lighter color, a darker color, a green sort of blemish covering color, and this powder, setting powder, which is nice for under the eyes so that your mascara won't run. And I also have this Bobbi Brown concealer. It's the creamy concealer. This color is Ivory, and it also has a finishing powder. So today I'm going to use the creamy concealer underneath my eyes. And I'm just taking that on my ring finger. And the creamy concealer is a really nice consistency, but it does crease under the eyes on some people. It's really good for blemishes on your face. And there's also a really great salmony color corrector that Bobbi Brown makes that is really nice for covering up dark under eye circles. I'm just going to put some of the powder over it, just with my finger as well. I'm just dabbing it on. I don't normally powder my skin unless I'm going to be somewhere where I want the makeup to really last a long time, or I'm going to have my photo taken so that it doesn't really look as shiny in photos, because naturally I just kind of like a natural finish with more of a bit of a sheen to it than like a really matte or even cakey finish or something like that. If you do want to set your makeup, then I would suggest a translucent powder. I have a Clinique powder that I like reasonably well, but again, I just don't like that extra makeup on my face. I like it to be more natural. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my blush, highlight, and contour, just because that kind of goes with the base face that I would put on. And so I'm going to use Harmony Contour Powder, which is what I use basically 90% of the time to contour my face. Sometimes I'll use a bronzer, but I really like the natural color of this better, and so I've really kind of converted to Harmony, and I have a Real Techniques contour brush. So what you're going to do to contour is just suck in your cheekbone and go right along that indentation that appears and blend it upwards. And you're going to go in a C motion, so from here all the way to your temple. Just like that. Just going to blend it into the hairline as well. Okay, so once that's done, I take the same brush and I kind of go back and forth between Pearl Cream Color Base from MAC and this Elizabeth Arden highlighter called Rose Illumination, which I really love now that it's summer and it's a bit bronzier. And so I'm just going to take that and I'm just going to put it right on the top of the cheekbone. Okay, and my everyday blush lately has been this Estee Lauder blush in Electric Pink. And it's the Pure Color blush. It's the newer one and it's extremely pigmented. So I just dab the brush in it a little bit and just lightly tap it onto my cheekbones or my cheeks. And when I do this, I'm not bringing it too far in here or too far down here. It's really just going on the apple. So when you smile, like right here. Okay, and once I have that done, I'm going to take the same stippling brush that I used for my foundation and I'm going to blend it all in. And if you want the blush to last a little bit longer, then just layer a little bit more on top. It's all about layering. And blending again. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do for my face is put on my eyebrows. And I'm using the Laura Mercier Warm Brow Definer, which I'm almost out of, and I'm going to be switching eyebrow products soon, which I'm really excited about. As much as I absolutely love this, and I think it's the best eye product, it does take a while for me to do my eyebrows with it, and so I'm excited to try something new. And I do my eyebrows in basically every video, so I don't know if this is going to be a bit boring. But basically, I don't change the eyebrows too much. I just try to fill in gaps, make it a bit straighter, and elongate them a little bit. And I always stroke upwards in the beginning to give it a more natural shape. Then I'm going to go from the bottom, shape the bottom, go to the top and start shaping the top. And the shape that I actually give them kind of changes every single day depending on how I want it done or just how I do it. Sometimes they're more arched, sometimes they are more angular. If I have time, they're usually thicker. If I don't have time, they stay quite thin, but I like them thicker. So what I like about the Warm Brow Definer is that it's a gel, so it looks to me the most natural. When I use powders, sometimes they can be a little bit harsh because I have a lot of eyebrow naturally. I'm not somebody that really needs to fill in a whole section of their eyebrow. So I kind of like the gel. I think that if you don't have large sections of your eyebrows, then you need something more like a pencil or a powder that's going to give you a darker effect. If you're using powder, you should use a couple shades lighter than your actual hair color so that you don't look like they're really drawn on. And I'm not really against powders. I like powders because you can mix the colors and everything. But for me, I think that this looks the most natural. Okay, so once I put everything on, I can just take the brush and brush through it a little bit more to kind of soften the product and brush through the hairs and just distribute it and make sure it looks natural and even. Okay, so that's my finished face, and then I would just go on and do my eye makeup and my lips. So I hope this video was useful, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!